What sparked the chaos? It wasn't a throwaway remark or a handful of hecklers. The frustration had been building for months. Keir Starmer's speeches, heavy with recycled promises and light on bold action, left supporters restless. His cautious tone on the economy, his vague talk of stability, it all felt distant and detached. Many in the hall expected clarity and conviction, but instead they heard more of the same until patience snapped. The boos weren't random. They were the sound of disillusionment breaking into the open. But is this just a passing storm, or something far more dangerous? Keep watching to find out, and share your thoughts in the comments below.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery.
Keir Starmer walked onto the stage, expecting the usual applause. Instead, he was met with something every politician dreads: boos, shouting, and a wave of hostility that filled the room. This wasn't just a handful of hecklers, it was raw frustration pouring out of the crowd. At first, he tried to carry on as if nothing was wrong, but the noise only grew louder. You could see the shift on people's faces, curiosity giving way to anger. Some shook their heads in open disappointment, while others shouted over him, drowning out his words. Any hope of a warm reception disappeared in an instant. This wasn't mild resistance, it was a moment of very public humiliation. What went so wrong? Why did his own supporters turn on him so fiercely? As Labour leader, Keir Starmer likely assumed he was stepping into friendly territory, an audience that would at least hear him out, maybe even greet him with polite applause. But the mood in the room told a different story from the very start. There were no welcoming smiles, no buzz of excitement. Instead, arms were folded, eyes were narrowed, and low murmurs rippled across the crowd. Even before he opened his mouth, the atmosphere was thick with unease. Within moments, it became obvious this was never going to be the warm reception he had expected.
Every stage during this crisis, my approach has been driven by the need to respond to both these tragedies, to stand by the right to self-defence of any nation which suffers terrorism on this scale, alongside the basic human rights of innocent Palestinians caught once again.
Starmer began with the economy, repeating familiar lines about growth and responsibility. The crowd stayed silent, arms crossed. His pivot to Brexit fell flat. Murmurs, eye rolls, whispers. Then came the breaking point, his rejection of a ceasefire in Gaza. The first boo cut through the hall like a knife. Starmer flinched. More voices joined, and within seconds the silence had turned into a wave of hostility. Shouts rose, frustration spilled over. A woman stood, demanding, "What about the children's care?" Others echoed her. Starmer tried to power through, raising his voice, but the room was gone. he had lost them completely.
True democracy is citizen-led. Politics needs an update. We demand a people's house. We demand a people's house. We are in crisis. We are in crisis. Our future is...
The Labour MPs sitting behind Starmer looked visibly uncomfortable. One hid behind his notepad, scribbling as if taking notes, while another clung to her phone like it might offer an escape. Even his closest allies seemed to wish they could disappear. Then came the breaking point. People began walking out. Row after row stood up, some muttering as they left, others making sure to boo one last time. It was clear. Starmer had lost the room completely, and there was no way back. This wasn't just a bad speech. It was another blow in a string of political missteps that have left his leadership hanging by a thread. For months, Labour supporters had been uneasy, but this moment confirmed their worst fears. Starmer feels out of touch with the very people he's meant to represent. His handling of Brexit has only deepened the divide. Back in 2016, he was a strong Remain advocate who pushed for a second referendum. Now, he's urging everyone to move on, as if voters would simply forget. But they haven't. Pro-Brexit Labour voters feel abandoned, while pro-Remain supporters feel betrayed. Somehow, Starmer has managed to alienate both sides.
He thinks that bothers me. He doesn't know me. Protest or power. That's why we changed our party, Conference. That's why we changed our party. Thank you.
Starmer's economic plan is full of vague promises about stability and fiscal responsibility, phrases that sound more like Conservative talking points than a bold Labour vision. His refusal to back a ceasefire in Gaza has only fueled frustration, even within his own party. For many long-time Labour supporters, the party once stood as a force for justice. Now, they feel let down by a leader, more concerned with playing it safe than standing up for what's right. Behind closed doors, unease is growing. Whispers of leadership challenges are spreading, and some MPs are already weighing their options. Starmer was supposed to be Labour's steady hand, the leader who could rebuild trust and guide the party back to power. But the polls tell a different story. Public support is slipping, and the fallout from the Southport disaster has only deepened doubts. Unless he changes course quickly, his time at the top could be running out.
First is on the question of terrorism and what constitutes terrorism. And my concern in this case is that we have clearly got an example of extreme violence, individualised violence, that we have to protect our children from and our citizens from. And it is a new threat. It's not what we would have usually thought of as terrorism when definitions were drawn up, when guidelines were put in place, when the framework was put in place. And we have to recognise that here today, because I think most people would say, looking at the facts of this case, it's clearly extreme violence, it's clearly intended to terrorise. And I completely accept and understand that, and that is my view. Therefore, we have to make sure that the law and the framework for responding is appropriate to the new threat that we face. And there we will make whatever changes are necessary in the law.
As if the Southport speech hadn't done enough damage, Keir Starmer's latest move has left many Labour supporters.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Next UK, your go-to for real stories and sharp analysis.